This crowd rises to its feet. Toro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland went to the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Showdown podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Showdown is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network, without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try it for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Well, the Cavs and Thunder both did their parts. The Oklahoma City Thunder are riding a 15-game winning streak. The Cleveland Cavaliers riding a 10-game winning streak. We have one of the most exciting regular season matchups that I can remember coming up. And joining me today, my same old co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, buddy. I went to Cavs Hornets, which was super fun. I took my nephew for his first Cavs game, which was great. And we got to sit courtside, brother, for the full game. So that was a pretty special. Big thanks to the Cavs for helping me look like the coolest uncle in the entire world. It was his first game, and I was like, we've ruined sports for this kid. He's 9. And it'll never be as good as it was last night.
I saw courtside Carter getting tackled by Cody Martin.
I got Cody Martin dove for a loose ball right into my legs. I won't lie, it hurt a little bit. No word on how Cody's doing. Prayers up.
Yeah, hopefully he's not on the injury report. But we got a really exciting matchup, as I talked about at the start of this podcast, coming up. I could not be more excited. We are joined today by executive podcast producer for The Athletic and the host of the Saturday Slam and Jam and Down to Dunk podcast, Andrew Schlecht. Andrew, how you doing, man?
Guys, I'm doing great. I could not believe that we got to this point. I saw this matchup coming up and thought, okay, this would be great. I thought maybe the Thunder will lose a couple of these games leading up to it. But the fact that both teams are riding these big winning streaks just gives this matchup so much more juice. I'm so pumped up.
It's a really interesting parallel with both of these teams, not only in how hot they are, but basically like both of these teams are off to historic starts. I was listening to the Down to Dunk podcast, and I heard you mention that you felt that this was the best Oklahoma City Thunder team that you've seen. And, from a Cavs standpoint, we're also in a very similar boat where, Cavs have had, really, really great players in their history. LeBron James, pretty decent player. From an Oklahoma City standpoint, you have Kevin Durant, pretty good player. Russell Westbrook, pretty good player. James Harden, pretty good player. But despite, not necessarily having those all-time stars present, both of these franchises, good correction, both of these franchises are sitting here with teams that are setting franchise records off to franchise best pace. And I just want you to kind of elaborate on what makes you feel that this is the best Thunder team that you've seen.
It's funny because Jared Allen recently talked about ethical basketball. And I think that's probably happening for both teams right now. You think about just the way that both teams share the ball and the way that both teams play on the offensive end. Like they're both looking for the right shots. And so that to me is probably something that defines this team. And really for the Thunder, the thing that defines it more than anything is their defense. I mean, the fact that they have a 102 defensive rating right now when we're already in January and they haven't had the full team yet. I mean, this is mostly without Chet. They're 19-1 with Hartenstein, and a lot of it has been just the defense. They just absolutely hound you. They've got great point of attack defenders. They obviously have great rim protection. And then you have the guys in between with J-Dub and Shea who are just super disruptive defenders. And that to me has defined it. And that is the reason that they are the best Thunder team, in my opinion, is just the defense is so dominant. And then they play an unselfish style on the other end. And then it's also the depth. I mentioned Chet's out. Caruso has only played in 7 of these games of the 15 that they've won. They just have guys that continue to step up and continue to play well. Aaron Wiggins has played really well the past couple games. We've seen rookie A.J. Mitchell, who's been out of the lineup for just this past game, but he's stepped up in a big way at times. Lou Dort was great in the second half against Boston. They just have great depth, and that is probably one of the bigger separators for them as well. And I think that's probably the same thing for the Cavs, is that they just continue to whoever they put out there is going to produce at some level.
Yeah, it's no, you go ahead, Justin.
No, you. Oh, well, now you're drinking, so I might as well. It definitely has been kind of the story of the season, right? Like, there's been times where, even going down to the more like the common staggering pairings that Kenny Atkinson is using. In the past, Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley, those lineups didn't work. They had a negative net rating through 2 years. The Darius Garland, Jared Allen pairing worked really well in their All-Star season. Not so great the last 2 years, but it seems like every combination that Kenny Atkinson has used this year has been really successful. And despite the fact that this team isn't really chasing wins, like they're keeping guys out a little longer, playing it safe with injuries. No one's really playing over 30 minutes. Yeah. It's just kind of resulting in wins because, the Thunder are doing it with one of the best defenses I've ever seen. And the Cavs are doing it with, the best offense that the league has seen through 35 games.
Yeah.
It is fun seeing the contrast. Go ahead, Carter. What do you got to say, my man?
Oh, not too much. Not too much. Yeah, it is. It does feel like this is like, I think part of the reason I think we can all get so excited for this is it's not only just a game between two great teams. It's like the ultimate styles make fights type of game. The Cavs are big. The Thunder are, Hartenstein excluded, small. The Cavs are this electric offense. The Thunder are this unbelievably stifling defense. And beyond that, I feel like neither has even gotten got. It's like, it's not like the Cavs have had maybe one game where against Atlanta where I think they had a sub 100 offensive rating. I mean, and even in like you look at that cup final loss for the Thunder, which of course doesn't count. No one's counted.
What happens in Vegas, man? What happens in Vegas?
What happens in Vegas? But like other than that, even when they lose, it's like their offense kind of lets them down. Like that, I feel like the defense has been the one. Like no matter what, like why do you think it is that OKC is just getting absolutely like? It doesn't feel like teams have the variance game against them where they just can't miss, and OKC gives up 130. Everyone else has those games. Why doesn't it happen to OKC?
Yeah, they just have such a strong baseline of defense, and it's the guys that continue to come in. I mean, it's Casey Wallace has started a majority of games for the Thunder, but he and Lou Dort are interchangeable at times. I think that helps a lot, and it's really just like the energy. Like the energy just strangely doesn't waver, and you would think that would be something that would eventually waver for a team, but it just really hasn't. And I think a lot of that starts with the leadership from Shea. Like Shea, he wants to win so badly, and he will bring the energy on both ends every single night. And I think those guys look to him, and they decide we're going to play like him. And that to me is probably the tone setter for this team. But a lot of it has been, to me, it's when Chet was in the lineup. I mean, teams were shooting 53% at the rim when Chet was in the game, which is just wild. But Hartenstein is one of the better rim protectors in the league. And he doesn't have like the fancy block numbers. He's averaging 1.4 blocks per game, but he just is really good at switching, and he's really good at preventing guys from getting into the paint or getting to the rim. He's super physical, and I think that he has been a huge reason why. And just having one of those centers in the game just helps so much. And it's just hard to imagine what it'll look like having both of them, at some point, where I don't know how much they'll play together, but they'll certainly stagger them. You'll have 48 minutes of those guys. But I think that it starts with the perimeter defenders, the point of attack guys in Lou Dort and Cason Wallace. And then when you have a guy like Hartenstein on the back line, it really helps. And Jalen Williams, too, is probably an underrated defender. He's got to defend a lot of bigger guys. My guess is that he'll defend Evan Mobley for a vast majority of the time on Wednesday. And he has done really well. He defended Towns the other night. Like, that was his primary assignment. He did very well with Towns. It kind of took him out of his game. Towns didn't take a three in the game against the Thunder, which was just really strange.
He has weird games like that where it's like, why aren't you doing the thing that you do?
Yeah, it was almost like he was like the Thunder like gave him like this like 1990s chip or something they put into his brain. They're like, hey, you're big. You better get down on the block, buddy. It was strange. It was very strange. But J-Dub did a good job. And he's a guy that I think probably goes a little bit under the radar on the defensive end. But he will get those like either the big wings or like the big power forward assignments. And he's done a very good job, even despite the fact that he's I mean, he's labeled as a shooting guard on Basketball Reference.
Yeah, and that's probably, a testament to how good of a job both Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein have done as a rim protector, because, even though he's holding his own as a power forward, having that backline support really helps. And I was looking at the numbers last year. Opponents were shooting 11.4% worse at the rim with Chet defending. It was 11.2 with Hartenstein with the Knicks, right? So when you have two guys like that, like you said, it really does give you a really high floor defensively. And, you said that you're not sure how it's going to look when both are available to the Thunder. You're kind of copying our notes. You could just look over the Cleveland Cavaliers and how they always have one of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. I'm really excited to see what Chet Holmgren looks like as kind of that roaming power forward, getting to kind of spread his wings on the defensive end as Evan Mobley is able to. And you mentioned it, with Jalen Williams defending Evan Mobley. I'm really curious to see how that looks, because, one of the kind of things that Carter and I have highlighted over the last couple of years is when you're building an offense around two smaller guards, you need to have that front court playmaker to alleviate what teams can do to them defensively. And the Thunder have a lot of length. Even though they're playing a shooting guard at power forward, there's a lot of point of attack defense. Lou Dort has done a phenomenal job on Donovan Mitchell. Shea is going. I assume he's going to probably guard Darius to start the game. Like, that's a lot of length to kind of throw at them. And I'm really curious to see what Oklahoma City does to disrupt Evan Mobley, because I kind of expect him to be, a key to freeing up the Cavs offense. Do you expect them to play straight up? Like, is that basically how Jalen Williams been playing these matchups?
Yeah, I expect it to be straight up for sure. And I think they'll probably have Shea on whoever is going to be on the wing. And then they'll probably have Kesa Wallace.
Gotcha.
Guarding Garland. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because I do think it will be straight up on Evan Mobley. And I don't know, and I know I'm talking to a Cavs audience right now, but I don't know that like the Thunder audience or other people really quite understand how good Evan's become on the offensive end. Like, I don't want to flip this on you guys. Like, what have been like the biggest improvements that you've seen, and how has he fared against like smaller guys that guard him?
Well, I think I'll jump in and just say I think that he's done a much better job of mashing these mashing switches, mashing mismatches. He's just functionally a lot stronger, and it's not in the way that you kind of imagine that what big, strong Evan Mobley would be. A lot of it's just he doesn't get knocked off his center of gravity as much anymore. And he has such pogo stick jumping ability where he gets off the ground really, really easy. A lot of the time, he's just high pointing floaters and layups when he's rim attacking. And it's not that he's, every now and again, like he had one last night against Nick Richards, I think, or maybe it was Mark Williams, I don't remember, where he does do the step through and dig the elbow in and go up and rise up. But a lot of it is he catches and he's up, he gets a bump and he's on the way to the hoop and he is up in the air faster than the defender is. And if you're not off balance when you're rising and you're 6 feet from the hoop and you're the size that Evan Mobley has, it's just it's functionally an uncontested layup. So I think the worst version of Evan Mobley even today is the guy who goes bump, 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 spin move, bump, to try to like worm his way to the hoop for a dunk. Like, he can do it still, and like there are certain possessions where he gets it, but I think really where he's been best is when he's catching on the move, catching with advantage, and it's just step, rise, and like it's just too hard of an angle for smaller players to guard. And then, and then when bigs are on him, at least this year, they just haven't been able to keep up with him. The handle's tighter. When they bump him, again, the center of gravity is good, and he's just stepping around people. Now, Hartenstein is a Cavs killer. He is very, very, very good against Jared Allen. He is very, very good against Evan, because not only is he big and strong, he's smart, and he's athletic. A quick little Hartenstein note, and I don't want to pivot too hard because it was a good question, and and it's certainly worth discussing
I'm throwing
further.
Off your game. I'm sorry.
It's fine. I just was looking it up when you were talking about Hartenstein. He's only averaging 3.5 fouls per 36, and literally his entire career he's been around 5 to highest he ever had was 9 fouls per 36. So he's got some kind of secret sauce going where he's able to play as physically as he always has, but now he's not giving you any easy ones. And like, so I think both J-Dub and Hartenstein kind of provide different challenges for Mobley, but like to Justin's point, he's going to have to figure it out.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see because we've seen him attack, some smaller defenders. We've seen him attack larger ones. And I think Carter did a really good job with the breakdown there. But I think what I find about this matchup that's so interesting is the Cavs approach offense differently than the Boston Celtics or the New York Knicks. This is something that we've talked about a fair bit recently where, Boston's really looking to find that mismatch on every possession, right? Like, let's get the switch we want and let's attack in isolation. And, if they bring help, we're going to kick it out to an open shooter. Oklahoma City held Boston to their second worst shot quality game of the season. And, there really isn't that mismatch to pick on. There are strong defenders up and down that lineup. And I think that's why you've seen Boston drop some of these games, like even to Orlando, that was incredibly shorthanded. There just wasn't the mismatch to kind of pick on. Whereas the Cavs, they kind of take it as we're going to run our offense no matter who's guarding us, and we just trust it to get good shots. And I think Mobley getting the ball with advantage and attacking within the flow of the offense, Donovan, Darius, that's what we want to see if the Cavs are able to do against this elite of a defense. Because as Carter said, when Mobley's just kind of playing mismatch basketball, I don't think that that's the most effective version of him. But I think the question is really going to be, can the Thunder disrupt what the Cavs are doing offensively and get them into the mud? Because I think from a matchup standpoint, that's what we really want to see. Is there something from the Oklahoma City standpoint that you're kind of interested to learn with this matchup against Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very interested to see how the two big front court does against the Thunder. Just because they are a little bit small everywhere else. They have good length and they're strong and they're pesky. But I'm just really curious to see how their defense works, because they're all about packing the paint and swarming whoever gets to the paint. The Celtics scored really well at the rim to start the game. I think they were 12 of 13 in the first half, and the Thunder just shut the water off in the second half, and they just brought more energy, more physicality. And it's going to take them doing that really probably for 48 minutes. That's one thing that I want to see too, is like, can the Thunder actually get off to a good start? Because they did not get off to a good start against the Knicks, did not get off to a good start against the Celtics. They had these incredible third and fourth quarters that kind of was this avalanche of points and then avalanche of just guys in the paint, just keeping the other team from scoring. And so I'm interested to see if that works. Neither team was really able to make the Thunder pay from the corners too. The Thunder give up more corner threes than any team in the NBA. And so I'm wondering if the Cavs can make the Thunder pay for that strategy. I think that's the strategy that I think really killed the Thunder against the Mavericks last year in the playoffs, was that Luka is just like an expert at hitting the corners from any point on the court. And so he got those guys wide open shots and they made them. I think that's another kind of Achilles heel for the Thunder defense, is that if you are intent on getting the ball to the corner, it's eventually going to be open, because the Thunder they would rather give up the corner three than any shot in the paint. And so I'm just curious to see if the Cavs can find those weak spots and exploit the Thunder defense in that way.
It's kind of interesting to hear, like, because, when you're not deep into watching OKC, you kind of just assume it's like this impregnable fortress that, you're just not going to be able to make hay on in any real spot. And then you kind of hear this kind of stuff and you realize, like, everyone picks a poison in the end. Yeah. Like, there is no perfect defense. There is no perfect scheme, perfect personnel that makes it so you just don't have to give up anything. And obviously the Cavs shooting it and 3-point barrage so far as the season has been, probably the most public hallmark of what's made them special. But something that I'm really interested to see is, are they going to be able to get downhill? Because the point of attack defense is so strong, but it is super aggressive. This is a really aggressive turnover forcing OKC team. Are Evan and Jarrett going to be able to set good enough screens? And is OKC gonna put two on the ball? Are they gonna switch? Are they gonna drop to? And And are the Cavs going to be able to turn the corner? Because, you look at that Boston game, and Boston is 27th in the league in drives per game. The Cavs are 4th. Obviously, OKC right there at 2. The Knicks are a middle of the pack team in terms of, really driving and getting into the paint of the defense. Do you think that a guy like Garland, a guy like Mitchell, who have, no one stopped them from getting into the teeth of the defense yet, but we do know hyper physical point of attack guards can junk them up. We saw that in the Knicks series a couple of years ago. We saw Orlando do it to them. Like, it does feel like the personnel's there to kind of keep the Cavs side to side. Do you think the Cavs are going to be able to get downhill?
It's really, really tough against Dort, and I think that he fights through screens so much. They will do a fair amount of switching. You'll see that, but he can fight over a screen better than almost anybody, and he's going to draw offensive fouls doing that. That's going to be the biggest test probably all season for the Cavs, is like, what does Donovan Mitchell do against Luguentz Dort? Because that guy is just he's given
him nightmares in the past. Like some of his worst games, thinking back to when he was in the Western Conference and even in recent years have come with Dort on him.
Yeah, Dort just doesn't stop. I mean, I haven't heard Mark describe it this way in a long time, but he used to describe it as if he like almost like blacks out on the court, and he's like so in the game that there's nothing you can do to take him out of it. And that's just how he plays. Even on the offensive end too, he did that. He started 0 of 8 against the Celtics, and like the dude just keeps shooting. He just doesn't care. Like, he's just in the game. He's in the moment. And that's how he is. And Kaysen Wallace is not that far off from that same mentality. And so to have two of those guys there, I don't know what Caruso's status is yet. He's missed what feels like enough time to where we can start talking about him coming back, which would be like adding another player that is pretty similar in the way that he plays defense to this group. I do think that if the Thunder are good at anything, they're good at keeping guys from getting downhill and getting into the paint. And so, they certainly will pack. Once somebody gets there, it's all about packing the paint, making them play in a crowd, and then you recover out to wherever the ball sprays out, whether that be back up top, down to the corners. That's where the Thunder are like really scrambling. And I say they give up the most corner threes. They're also, opponents aren't shooting that well on corner threes. They're only shooting 36.8%, which I think is like a top 10 number for a team defense. And so they're recovering, but they're still giving up more than anybody else. They're giving up 11. No one else has given up 11 in the league this year. Everybody else, like the Nets, it's funny because like you look at the other teams that are giving up 10, it's like the Nets and the Wizards and the Pelicans, are the teams that are giving up 10. It's just like these teams that are certainly much worse than the Thunder, but they're going to pack the paint. It's going to be a challenge. I think it'll be Donovan Mitchell a lot off the dribble for the Cavs in order for them, if he's going to be like the main driver of offense. Like, it's going to be probably a lot off the dribble, step backs, pull ups, which he's certainly capable of, but the getting downhill part is going to be tough with Lou.
Yeah, I mean, this is what makes Oklahoma City probably one of the best defenses I've ever seen, right? Like, the point of attack defense is so strong, but the help they're able to provide is just phenomenal. It's kind of similar to Zoom AI Companion in that way, because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion.
Brother, you don't catch me off guard that often anymore with those.
What a sneak attack that ad was. I for a second there, I was like, I don't know what he's saying, and I'm like, it's that doesn't happen very often when I'm on a basketball podcast. I was like, man, I don't know what the Zume thing is, but I'm really interested to find out.
That's what I'm going
Justin
for.
pays the bills for us, baby.
I'm here to get people off their feet and out of their comfort zone, similar to what the Oklahoma City Thunder will try to do with their defense. I couldn't be more excited for this matchup. I think Shea right now is the MVP front runner as a Canadian. That makes me thrilled. Shea was absolutely awesome for Team Canada, and showing off that ethical hoops, even though he gets some crap for
I'm so
foul
disgusted
baiting.
with you right now.
She was able to get it done in FIBA when they're allowing that physicality, unlike some other stars that couldn't handle it. So Shea can do both. He can do both. He's very versatile. But what I'm really excited about is they're almost mirror images of one another, right? Like, we both know the Cavs have the best offense and the Thunder have the best defense. But, even when you weigh it to like quality of opponent, it like down to every single category. Oklahoma City Thunder is the best defense against top 10 offenses in the league. The Cavs are the best offense against top 10 defenses in the league. You look at half court offense, the Cavs are number 1 in half court offense. The Thunder, number 1 in half court defense. The Thunder are number 7 in half court offense. The Cavs are number 6 in half court defense. So it's like mirror images every single category. And, you talked about them trying to get downhill and get the ball movement going. The Thunder are the best team in the league at generating steals. Boston was able to kind of avoid that because they play such isolation basketball. But for a Cavs team that really relies on ball movement, that's going to be a really interesting challenge because the Cavs do the third best job in the league taking care of the ball and not turning the ball over. But are they able to do that against Oklahoma City's defense? It's just like from top to bottom, I couldn't be more excited about kind of the styles make fights of this because, it really in the NBA right now in this parity-filled league, it's a big game of rock, paper, scissors. And the Cavs have been walking around with this rock and they're like, this rock rocks, dude. This is great. And we're just kind of trying to see, okay, when does the paper come? And I think that's what makes this so interesting.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just looking for the theoretical, extreme of each version of this team, and I think we'll learn a lot, because I do think there's a world where OKC wins a game that's in the 120s because it's not like either of these teams are bad at the other side of the ball. The Cavs are a top 7 defense. OKC is a top 8 offense. Certainly both teams can kind of play either way. And I got to ask a little bit about the other end of the floor, which is how is OKC going to score enough to keep up with the Cavs? We spent a lot of time talking about how the Cavs are going to, all the challenges they're going to have to score. Do you think OKC is going to reliably be able to get buckets against what I would consider to be the best shell defense in the league? If OKC are the best chaos defense, I think the Cavs are the best when you can't get them into rotation.
Yeah. I guess my question would be who do you think gets the assignment for Shea?
I think it'll be assuming no Okoro, because he's still recovering from that shoulder injury. I think it's going to be Dean Wade. I think it's going to be Dean Wade. And he is, I think, much better at guarding the big burly Jason Tatums of the world than the Shea. So that could be, a scab to pick at right away.
It's going to be the biggest test because I remember 2 years ago, it was Dean used to really struggle. He defended 3s and 4s well. But when it came to kind of shiftier guards, he would get really handsy. And know who you can't get handsy with? Shea, because those arms are going up and he's going to abuse you. And I remember there's a game 2 years ago where Shea just kind of got Dean in immediate foul trouble. He's done a better job of that, but I kind of, if I'm looking at ideal matchups, I would much prefer Isaac Okoro to be available in this game. It's kind of the Cavs version of Lou Dort, screen navigating, great point of attack defender that's learned how to shoot the threes. But I agree with Carter, but I also expect there to be a healthy amount of Darius on Shea. They're going to hunt screens. They're going to try to get it done. The Cavs, like the Thunder, play those possessions straight up. Boston basically ran continuous action to get Tatum onto Garland, and Garland held his own in those spots. So I kind of expect, no matter who's starting on Shea, there's going to be a good number of Darius on Shea possessions.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is the Cavs are one of the switchiest teams in the league this year. Way, way, way up than they were under JB Bickerstaff. And part of me, and I do think that's the strategy they should probably pursue here because, the reality is you're going to have Dean, Evan, or Jared on the back line protecting if Shea beats whoever is on the ball. So, I think the more that you can gunk up, OKC is a gunkable offense. You can slow them down. Can you talk a little bit about what tends to happen during those kind of fallow periods in the offense for someone who hasn't watched a lot of OKC?
Yeah, it typically happens when Shea is off the court. they have not really found a true rhythm with Shea off the court. I felt like they were starting to find it, and then AJ Mitchell sprained his toe. But AJ was kind of coming in as the backup point guard, and he would play a lot with J-Dub in those lineups. And I think that was certainly something that helped the offense. But it's usually when Shea's off the court and J-Dub is trying to find his way as like a driver and a playmaker and a scorer in his own right, which he's had a ton of success and he's had a ton of failure with that. Even recently, he only had 10 points against the Cavs or against the Celtics. And so I think that the real times when the Thunder struggle is when it's J-Dub in there as the guy that's running the offense, and then the other guys just aren't hitting. Isaiah Joe has gone through a drought recently. Aaron Wiggins has kind of come out of that. He's been really good the last few games, but it's when role players aren't hitting shots, and it's usually when Shea's off the court. Shea is going to get his. Like, Shea's going to come in, he's going to get 30. But it really is who else is stepping up on a night-to-night basis. And they have a lot of guys that are capable of doing it. We have seen it be Isaiah Joe at some points this season. We saw it. Cason Wallace was great against Boston the other day. Lou Dort was hitting his threes, but they're all a little streaky, and they're really the games that they've lost. The one that happened, the Cup game, was just like everybody was off,
Yeah.
Shea's doing his thing, but nobody else could hit, which was a problem. They lost to the Spurs without Wemby. It was a very strange game. It was probably, I talked about that energy that they always have. That was probably their lowest energy game of the season. I think it was probably
that's a defensible one where you look across from you and like, Spurs, no Wemby. Yeah, we probably can go with our B+ today.
Yeah, that's kind of how it felt. But yeah, to me, it's just that you don't get enough from the role players, and you're not getting enough from J-Dub, which has happened, in this season. But I'm interested to see how Shea gets into the mid range, because he loves to get to the hoop, he loves to drive, he'll draw fouls certainly. But I think that the thing that he's become like one of the best at is like just getting to that mid-range jumper. And like my curiosity is like, how have the Cavs handled guys that get to that mid-range jumper, and what has that looked like?
I mean, if we're talking about Shea hunting the switches and Garland being on him and Shea just shooting over him from the mid-range, the Cavs are going to say, okay, we're going to live with this. Like, we don't care if you hit your next 7. We're not going to bring help. We are going to stay in our shell defense. And, we're just going to live with this. Like, we're going to basically count on you not getting other people involved in those actions. And that's how they approached, the game against Boston. Like, the game in Boston, they didn't have a single small forward active for that game. Garland had one of his worst shooting games of his career.
His life.
And it's still, and it ended up being, a 3-point loss still, because Boston kept going to those Tatum actions, and the end result was a very inefficient points per possession on those spots. I expect Shea to be more efficient in those, but I think they would live with it. Like, that's basically been their defensive philosophy throughout this season. And I'm curious to see if that shifts, if Shea's getting Garland into foul trouble, or if he's able to really get to the rim and break down that shell, because he is such a talented ball handler. And for all the people that complain about the game being played the same way and every team plays the same style, I really hope they tune in Wednesday, because this is a matchup of like two teams that play the way everyone claims they want teams to play. Like, the Cavs play this 2014 Spurs ball movement style. Evan Mobley's playing as a 7-foot Draymond. Like, the ball just has so much momentum. They get those shots up. How they generate the shots varies. It's not a lot of isolation. Shea is, everything people say that, they miss about like Kobe and, all the mid-range assassins of yesteryear. Shea is able to do that in like a modern way. Like, this absolutely should be a game that people that complain about basketball being played the Celtics way should be tuning into.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that it's obviously a game that has been like flexed in. I think both the Thunder Cavs games have been, which is great to see. I just hope people will actually watch.
I hope so too.
Because it is going to be such a fun matchup. And it's like two teams that were built in ways that I think fans can get attached to as well. And I think that's true of the Celtics as well. I was saying this again about the Celtics matchup, but just like teams that were built in a way that you get to kind of grow, the fan base gets to grow with the team, which is just really cool. And it just builds this momentum like in the community and with the team and online and everything. And I just hope that we can see this kind of collision course of both these teams Wednesday night, and that the league promotes it in the right way, and that these guys can shine. I just hope that we get like a good game. Like I really don't want a blowout in either direction, because I want both teams to be showcased in a way that is favorable, and it's going to be highlighted on SportsCenter and whatever and wherever else, because like it's just to me it's a really important game, and two small markets as well.
I was going to say it's two small markets, not far removed from losing like a once in a generation talent, right?
Yeah.
Like, and these aren't teams that have the advantages of, you know, other markets where, okay, like we whiffed on a couple things, but you know, Hollywood's here, so we can sign LeBron if we want. Like it's, you know, it's look how long Chicago's been trying to get it going after losing Michael Jordan, right? Like it's not an easy thing to do, and both of these teams were built in really organic ways. You know, obviously OKC got some hauls for some of their players. Cavs managed to get the initial Kyrie return and transform that into, you know, Sexton, Lowry, and Jared Allen. So it was a bit of a recovery from the initial trade. But, you know, these are teams that, as you said, were built in really organic ways. And I just think it's so interesting that both of them have like these strengths, you know, the immovable object versus, you know, an unstoppable force. And also, like, their weaknesses aren't really things that the other team can pick on, right? Like, the Cavs are not the best defensive rebounding team. They're 21st in defensive rebounding rate, but OKC's 26th in offensive rebound rate, right? Or 25th. OKC, not a very good defensive rebounding team either. They're 28th. The Cavs, 26th in offensive rebound rate. So they don't really, like, take advantage of those. I think the only thing you could really point to is that OKC does allow, you know, the third most wide open threes. And, you know, for the season, teams have shot the 24th percentage on those shots. Cavs have shot incredibly well on wide open shots. But as we said before, whether they're able to get downhill and actually generate those shots, I think is going to be a really big question.
And I also think, for what it's worth, like, it just goes to show like the difference in like what a wide open shot means against the Chicago Bulls versus what a wide open shot means against OKC, where you've expended so much energy to earn that wide open shot. Even if you earn a lot of them, like, you're just gonna have heavier legs. You've got a crazy person flying at you on a closeout, like, and you know, like, and you know that like you might have had 3 or 4 possessions in a row where you didn't get a lot of rhythm, or you got the ball ripped from you a couple times, and like all of a sudden that wide open shot just feels real important to make, and you better make it, and then you get in your head and then you miss. So like I do think there's like a lot of like, even with those metrics, like, you know, a wide open shot just isn't the same against OKC as it is against the Bulls or the Pacers or some of these other teams that, you know, you can kind of make hay in that way offensively against.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. It looks exhausting to generate those open shots against OKC. I know they give up 24 a game, but you have to work for all of those. I guess the last question I have basically about, you know, kind of the tactical matchup here. Cavs run a lot of zone. How has OKC kind of performed against those defenses in the past? Like, they've been kind of historically a low 3-point shooting team. Like Shea and J-Dub didn't really have great volume prior to this year. They've managed to up that, but have they kind of had enough shooting to overcome some of those zone looks teams have thrown at them so far this season?
Yeah, they've done much better against zone. And I think some of that too is like you can get the ball into Hartenstein in the middle of the floor.
He's a savant, man.
Yeah,
he's so smart.
Yeah, that has helped a ton, because last year you throw a zone at the Thunder, they look like they'd never played basketball before. Like it did not look good. And some of it was you have Josh Giddey on the perimeter, he gets the ball and it's like a record scratch, and they're kind of leave him out there to make the decision. Like they're just daring him to shoot. And now you don't have that, you know, that when the ball is moving, it's going to hit the hands of somebody. Even if guys aren't guarding Dort, he's going to shoot it. If guys aren't guarding Casey Wallace, he's going to shoot it. You know, there's not the disruptive from the flow of offense anymore once they see a zone. And so they've actually fared pretty well. They've been able to crack zones a lot faster than they did last time. And so I'm interested to see that as well. I think that it is a true test for them and a true test for like Hartenstein with this group to see if they can actually crack it.
Yeah, I think, a true test is what these teams have wanted to have, right? Like OKC didn't get that chance when they played Memphis because everyone was out. And then, they just had two really big tests and they passed both of them. Even though those games didn't get off to great starts, they managed to kind of have those comebacks. And, from a Cavs perspective, we've been sitting here really kind of wanting to see the team tested as well, right? Like,
I want this one too much, Andrew.
I really want this one. Like when Golden State came into Cleveland, it was okay. This is the second best defense in the league. The issue that the Cavs have had going to the playoffs is the defense holds up. As much as people talk about getting a big wing defender, the defense has always been really great in the playoffs. Yeah. The offense goes to crap. Yeah. And so far they've held up against top 10 defenses. Best offense in the league in those scenarios. It's actually better than their season offensive rating, which is hard to believe.
That one Warriors game probably did that on its own.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I'm going to enjoy that one forever. But I can't wait to see this test. It's a styles make fights type of battle, and this is going to be really, really good. And I'm excited we get to do it twice in an 8-day span. So. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on. I understand you got to get going. Really, really do appreciate it. Before we let you go, let the people know where they can find your work.
Yeah, go check out The Athletic NBA Daily. It's a really fun podcast hosted by Dave DeFore. I host the Saturday show with my buddy Alex Spears, but super fun show that's in your podcast feed every single morning. It's about 20 minutes just recapping everything that happened the night before. So go check out The Athletic NBA Daily. If you want Thunder content, go check out Down to Dunk. Would appreciate follows and listens all over the place.
Absolutely. Well, I think I mentioned this before when you had me on, but the Slam and Jam is the only weekend podcast I listen to. I make the time for it because I absolutely love that podcast. Normally, weekends are podcast free for me, but I always make a point to tune in. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much to our listeners for tuning in. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chasedown's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.